Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Talks a Lot Boys. I'm your host. My name is Tyler, and as always, I'm joined by the boys. We've got Brennan.
What's going on, folks?
And we've got Kyle.
Hello.
It's the end of the year, fellas. And you know what that means. It's time to finally talk about our top albums of the year. A very difficult task for this particular year because 2022 was full of rippers, man. Like, I am astounded at the sheer quantity of quality albums that dropped this year. It was absolutely insane, and I only finished this list and finalized it minutes ago because there were so many albums that I was struggling to place. But I think I have a solid list now. Did you have similar struggles, fellas, when you were compiling your lists?
Yeah, definitely. I actually just flipped my 2 and 3 for probably the 8th time in the last hour and a half.
Nice.
So, yeah, it's been a struggle.
Fuck yeah.
Same, but with my 3 and 4, they flipped mere minutes ago. They flipped, but my 1 and 2 have been pretty locked. My 5 has been a interchanging wheel of different bands that I'm like, damn, that was good, but. Yeah, no. Yeah, so yeah. Yes and no. There's been some changing, some not so changing.
Yeah. As per usual, my list will be very predictable, and it will make a lot of people sad, because I'm going to reiterate that this is my personal top 5 list, so there's going to be albums on here that I screamed from the mountaintops about how great they were in the review, and they're not going to be on this list, and there are going to be reviews on here for albums that I was like, it was aight. And they're going to be on here because I just personally listen to them more than some of those other albums. Roast me in the comments. Feel free. I do not care. And you guys can roast me right now in person. I do not care.
We'll do it for you guys in the comments.
Yeah. It will happen at least once. I know. So I'm excited. I'm ready to fucking jump into it, boys.
Woo!
So for those at home who've never watched us do our top album thing before, we have 5 albums loaded up each. We each have a personal top 5, and we're going to go around the room one at a time. We're going to start with our 5, work our way up to our number 1, and that's the way the news goes. Kyle, we're going to start with you today.
Oh boy.
What is your number 5 album of 2022?
So my number 5, starting it out wildly technical. It's one that I all year since it came out was hoping would get on my list, and in the last couple days I went, it fucking deserves it. It's gonna be there. It's Totem by Seder.
Nice. Very nice.
I fucking adore this album. It harkens back to the very beginning of the year for us in a way too, because that's when we saw Seder live when we didn't know who the hell they were.
Yeah, that was technically the end of last year, but you know.
What was it? The end of last year?
Yeah, it was Brennan's birthday, 2021.
Yeah, it was December.
Yeah.
Oh, it was. So like a year ago now, I guess, huh?
Yeah.
But yeah, I forgot that wasn't the beginning. It was the end of the year. But anyways, brings the year full circle because we didn't know who the hell Seder was. We saw them live. We went, damn, those guys are good. And we checked them out. And then we reviewed their album, and it was fucking insane. Easily one of the highest levels of technicality and like music writing and composition that came out this year for me. One other one that'll be on my list a little bit later, but a completely different genre than that one. And as far as like this genre goes, it's probably like the most like technical high level shit I've ever heard. And it also sounds really fucking good. And those things don't always connect. And I really appreciate it. They also just seem like really cool guys. So that's cool. As far as the actual album goes, I'd say like my big shouts, Haven High and Above. I think that song is just fucking magic. Just straight magic.
Yeah.
And then as far as the other ones go, I definitely really like Bloom, Attrition, Vector. Gotta like them all. But like Haven definitely more above everybody else. Definitely check out. If you're gonna check out one and you didn't listen to a review of it, definitely check out Haven. Fucking it's a work of art. So many cool like rhythmic changes, time signature shit. It's It's wild, man. I almost did I almost recorded a a video essay style breakdown of this album after we listened to it and reviewed it because I felt like I wanted to say so much about it and like talk so much about like the technicality of it. I didn't end up doing it, but I still kind of want to. It could have easily been a couple hours, like no joke. It was so cool. So massive props to them. But that's my number 5, baby. Totem. Woo.
Fuck yeah, dude. That is a really fucking tasty album. Not on my list, unfortunately.
That's fair.
Because I appreciate its technical glory, but if I listen to the whole album in one sitting, it gives me a panic attack because there's so much happening. But that's just me.
That's fair.
Brennan, we're on to you. What is your number 5 album of the year?
Not much is gonna change because my number 5 is also Totem by Seder.
Nice, good shit.
Oh, you should have got someone else's list. Let's go. I'm so happy.
I mean, this album is so technical and like so ridiculous, like with just all the stuff that they pull off, that I could not sit here and not put it on my list. I think this album accomplishes a lot. Like I said, it's technicality, you know, listen to songs like Attrition, Haven. I think the titular track at the end of it is like this emotional yet technical like masterpiece to like conclude the album. The reason why it's not really higher on my list is because like its technicality is kind of overwhelming sometimes.
For sure.
Kind of makes it hard to do like, you know, prolonged listens of it. But, you know, if you look at the album like in a vacuum and, you know, break it up bit by bit, like this is top notch, you know, technicality and songwriting, and it's just it's almost like masterpiece level of, you know, album writing. And who knows, maybe down the road we look back and consider this a masterpiece. But yeah, my number 5, Totem by Seder, for sure. Solid
Fuck
pick,
yeah,
man.
dude. Hell yeah. Now a wild shift. This is the one that's gonna make everyone upset. Until like today, this was not gonna be on my list, right? It had been in the running, but I was like, there's no way this is actually gonna make it in my top 5 because the sheer amount of good shit that came out this year. And I listened to it again for like the 100th time right before this, along with a bunch of other albums that were in contention. And I was like, I can't not put this in my top 5. It would feel wrong because of how much I subjectively enjoy listening to this and how much I've listened to it throughout the year. It's Kings of the New Age by State Champs. So
there it is.
Give me the hate if you want. I do not care. It bumped out In Stasis by Monuments minutes before this recording started. That was going to be my number 5. I listened to both albums back to back and I was like, In Stasis is fucking immaculate, but Kings of the New Age is like, it's a guilty pleasure for me. I like it. I've been jamming it all year long. I understand that Brennan hates it. I understand that Kyle feels nothing about it. I don't care. This is my brand, and I embrace it. I listen to what I like. It's a fun album. I had a great time with it this year, and I'm sticking with it. That's my number 5. I would feel wrong if I didn't do it.
Hell yeah.
Fair.
And even my opinion of the different songs is different than our ranking because y'all know I wanted Everybody But You to be much higher than it was. That's probably my favorite song off the album, if I'm being perfectly honest.
Fair enough.
That's just personal taste, baby.
It is what it is.
Fair, man.
It is what it is.
I do think, you know, I can admit I've even come back to that album a couple times since we reviewed it myself, and just the fact that I throw it on shuffle while I'm just like doing something at work or something, and you know, it's still a really fun one to just have on. Not really, you don't really have to focus on it, and it just gives you those good vibes, you know, those push me through the day energy vibes that I like.
Yeah.
I was gonna just fully support you with you having this one on your list until you said it knocked out In Stasis, and I was like, oh no.
Yeah, it was one of the most difficult choices I've ever had to make, but it felt right.
Hey, whatever you gotta do, man.
Yeah.
It's not
in this
In Stasis
moment.
isn't on
It
my
felt
list,
like the right decision.
All right.
Yeah.
Whatever floats your goat, man. I mean,
That's the thing. Like I said, I mean, you know, in the review, like I will give it knocks where it deserves, and like in our reviews, I will objectively say other albums are a lot better. But when it comes to my personal top 5 of the year, it's all subjectivity, baby. And I love State
yeah.
Champs, so I have to include this.
Hell yeah, man.
But yeah, that's my number 5. We're on to number 4s, and no controversy from me for the rest of the list, I promise. Kyle, we are back to you. What is your number 4?
Speaking of no controversy, I feel as though this one is something we can all get along with, saying that if it's not on all of our lists, it was probably in contention for all of us. It is Remember That You Will Die by Polyphia.
Whoa.
Fucking love that album.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah, I thought this album might get a little higher than where it landed for me. It still made it on the list because it is still really fucking good. But originally, when I had like heard the singles of it, especially leading right up to it with all the hype, I was like, this could maybe like sneak up to like 3 or 2 for me. But in all actuality, it ended up kind of landing like on post listens a little bit flatter than I had like gone in the hype with. Not to say that it was bad at all. Like I said, it's fantastic. But there are like a lot of their Polyphia albums, I like all of the songs a lot, and there's like slight variation. This one, there's like very much like a verticality to how much I like the songs. But even within that, I can still appreciate how many different things they tried on this album. And that's kind of something that will be a prevailing thing with all the albums I have left, and trying new things. All of them I give that nod to. And this one arguably more than the other 3 that I'm going to talk about later, because some of the genres they bend into is just so fucking cool. ABC was one of my most listened to songs last year, now that I've gotten my little replay Apple Music thing. And for good reason. I fucking love it. I love the poppiness of it. It's such a cool fusion for Polyphia to pull off. And then along with like everything else, with the acoustics of like Playing God and Chimera, the fucking like techno-iness of The Audacity, which is still one of my favorite songs probably of the year, and the brass and Genesis and other songs. It's so fucking cool. I still love the album a ton, even though it fell a little flat from my really high expectations. But man, it still fucking rips. But yeah, Remember That You Will Die. 4.
Hell yeah.
Damn. All right.
Brandon, are you gonna match Kyle again for your number 4 spot?
No, it's that album's on my list. It's a little higher.
Okay.
Fair.
But my number 4 is gonna be Remade in Misery by Memphis May Fire.
Fuck yeah, dude. I was hoping that would crack someone's list.
Hell yeah.
Cause granted, disclaimer here, all right, like this album has a couple stinkers on it. Let's be real. There's like a Wage War ripoff track. It has one track that I have yet to go back and listen to since reviewing the album, but for me, I'm hoping that this album sparks like a resurgence and like sets a precedent for bands that maybe like really struck it big in their early days and kind of like either sold out or like fell off, and then like, hey, like we're way different than what we used to be and people don't fucking like that, so why don't we veer back into a course of like writing music that our fan base has really enjoyed at the beginning. And I think this is the best thing they've come out with in a solid 8 years. I mean, Unconditional fell off from Challenger, which Challenger fell off from The Hollow. But this album, like listening to it, I do get like that old school like Memphis May Fire, like what got me into the band kind of vibe. And I think they did really well with it. I mean, a vast majority of the album is like solidly good music. And with some tracks even being, great, spectacular, and, personally in my top 10 of the year. But, can't really put it any higher on the list. I think the 3 albums that are above it are just objectively better. I mean, even subjectively better in some tastes. But I think it's a very solid record, and I'm glad to see Memphis May Fire slowly making their way back on the map. So, Remade in Misery by Memphis May Fire, baby.
Yeah, that was very much in contention for my list. Ultimately didn't end up putting it on, but I agree with everything you said. Like, I hope this sets a precedent for, like, they gave the people what they wanted again. continue to do that for the rest of time, please. Like, that album made me so happy because it's the old school Memphis Bay Fire vibes that we've wanted for so long. My number 4 is the same as Kyle's, actually. It's Remember That You Will Die by Polyphia. So, I mean, Kyle's pretty much said everything there is to be said about this, but Polyphia is just a fucking phenomenal band. Every single song on that album, even though there are some, like Kyle said, I think there's like an order of quality to them. In certain ways, there's definitely certain songs that I don't enjoy as much as some other ones, but I can't deny the fact that the album as a whole is just like absolute wizardry in the genre. I mean, uncontested, really, with like the uniqueness and the just a crazy amount of depth going in, while making it like really fucking listenable and groovy. It's like Seder levels of like complicated, but it doesn't like overwhelm me. I actually I love jamming to it consistently. And just the fact that like I had a lot of fun doing the reaction videos to all the singles they released this year too, so that, you know, held a lot of weight in the placement of this as well, because for as long as I live, I will always remember getting roasted alive on the internet for saying that the Japanese was Korean and on ABC.
Legendary.
And you know, just special time in my life for sure. And I love this album, man. I'm gonna keep jamming it forever. So yeah. Polyphia, also my number 4. Kyle, we're back to you. What is your number 3 album of the year?
So we're on to the part of the list now where I consider all 3 of these albums that I want to talk about being some of my favorites of all time albums, which is awesome that that's 3 this year, because that's a lot of great albums in one year. To start it out, starting with a band that I like so much I'm wearing their merch. It's Royal Coda, baby.
Nice.
To Only a Few at First is my number 3. Previously, before this album came out, I liked Royal Coda. They weren't really one that I ever really went out of my way to listen to. Compassion occasionally, but in my opinion, a lot of Royal Coda up until this point had a lot of semi-samey stuff. There were cool technical things going on, but when I listened to them, nothing really grabbed my ears and eyes, except for things, like Numbing Agent, fucking Becoming the Memory. Those 2 specifically were the ones that I would listen to most of the time. Into this album now that came out this year, To Only a Few at First. Every single fucking song in this album I adore. There is no scaling of quality or anything like that. Each one of these songs brings so much to the fucking table, and that's for me as a fan, just sharply shifted my fucking view of them. I was just they went from a lot of samey shit to having things that are slightly different as you go on to the album, but the level of quality is still super high. They try different things with the slowed down stuff, and it found a different path that kind of channels the Gold Necklace vibes a bit. The final track on the album, Where the Air Seemed to Cease, got some weird change up shit going on throughout that whole track that I kind of criticized a little bit back when we reviewed it objectively, but subjectively I just fucking adore it. This album's just so good. It also was heightened for me personally by the fact that Tyler and I got to see a handful of these songs performed live very recently. And they were phenomenal live. Just as good as the recording, if not better, in my opinion, which I always heightens things for me as far as the way that albums hold up in my mind. But yeah, I just fucking adore this album, top to bottom. After seeing them live, I almost considered pushing them up to number 2. That's how close it got for me. But the number 1 and number 2 for me are pretty rock solid at this point. But we'll get there. But to get there, I have to lock this in, baby. To Only a Few at First, number 3 for me. Good shit, Royal Coda.
Oh yeah,
love your merch.
Another phenomenal album that I unfortunately could not make room for on my list, but I'm extremely happy that it made it onto yours, because damn, what a fucking great album. Definitely their best work for sure.
Same.
Brennan, we're on to you. What is your number 3 album of the year?
This is another situation where Kyle and I match up. It is
Let's go.
Hell yeah.
To Only a Few at First by Royal Coda.
Yeah, brother.
This album, the first couple times I listened to it, I thought it was like really good, really solid, especially for our review. But like the last like month or so, you know, pitting all these albums like against each other plus others, you know, they're like honorable mention type albums. Like listening to like the instrumental depth of the album, listening to, you know, Kurt Travis's vocal performance throughout, like how everything like works together, you know, even in songs like we didn't really rank too high, like just the fact like how transitions happened, how, you know, the instrumentals and the vocals like they said seem to like bounce off each other and like work together, not necessarily like grading against one another. Like this album is full of tracks that are like legendary for like the swancore scene, and you know, Royal Coda basically being a side hustle for a lot of these musicians that are in it. You know, to be a side hustle and yet have, you know, the energy and the spirit and the drive that like a lot of, you know, these artists' full-time projects like have, I think was absolutely spectacular. So yeah, my number 3 is To Only a Few at First by Royal Coda.
Fuck yeah,
man.
Very well said. I again didn't put it on my list, but it's it probably deserved to be on it because it's what a fucking quality album, man. And especially after hearing him live, I mean, shit was awesome. But you know who else we heard live that night, Kyle? A band that you yourself said blew your socks clean out of the state. Is Rain City Drive, and their self-titled album is my number 3.
Hell yeah, man.
I fucking love Rain City Drive. They are easily, very quickly becoming one of my favorite bands of all time. To Better Days is still one of my favorite albums ever created in the history of time. That album just meant so fucking much to me. And this album, personally, I don't like it as much as that one, just because I don't have that emotional connection to some of the songs, right? But that does not take away from the amount of fucking quality in Rain City Drive's self-titled that they put out this year. Every single song is a bop. There's so much to just take in from it. Like, Matt McAndrew has the voice of a fucking angel, and he really just puts it all on display in this album. Some of the like falsetto shit he does is like crazy. There's just if you haven't watched our review of the album, please go and do that because we go fully in depth with it. But it's just they're continuing on the right path, and I think from a quality perspective too, like you can tell that they're growing and developing their sound between To Better Days and this album. I would say objectively, it sounds better than To Better Days. They're definitely growing as a band and loving the direction they're going. I can't wait for more stuff, but this fucking album will satiate me for the time being because it was incredible. Almost clocked in at my number 2 just because of the sheer amount of times I've listened to this album.
Hell yeah.
But didn't quite make it. But yeah. Rain City Drive, self-titled, my number 3.
Fuck yeah. I'm so glad it's on your list because it was one of those ones that nearly made it onto mine, especially after hearing them live. It nearly snuck in there. And I mean, now that I got my replay too, it was like my second most listened to album of the year as well. I didn't even realize it at the time. It didn't feel like it was, but I came back to that album a lot, man. It's so fucking good. I love what you said specifically about the way that it just seems like they're growing more into their own kind of thing now from To Better Days. Because I also think To Better Days is phenomenal. But this track, there's just a level of like finesse that you really get from the band that is just so good.
Definitely.
Fuck yeah, man.
Yeah. And I'm assuming, I kind of figured I was going to be the only one who had it on my list, but yeah. It's all good. There's too many good albums this year, man. There's too many good albums. Yeah. Well, Kyle, we're on to number 2. So lay it on us. What is your number 2 album of the year?
So my number 2 album of the year. It's one that I gushed about very briefly during This Month in Music. And before I talk about it, because we didn't actually review it, I will say you mentioned something before about, checking out our reviews of these albums. Everything we've talked about up to this point, we have done a review of in full if I'm not mistaken, at some point this year. Check them all out if you want to see us actually break them down, like song by song, get really fucking in depth. It's like our favorite thing to do on the channel. So definitely check all those out because that's where you'll find the juicy details. But this next album I have to talk about. We did not talk about, mainly because it's not in a genre we really talk about very often. It's one that I've brought up many times about being one of my favorite bands, and that's Snarky Puppy. They released an album called Empire Central this year. Fucking destroyed me, personally, because I literally, I mentioned it in This Month of Music, brought me to tears listening to it. I'm not even gonna lie to you.
Damn.
It is so good. And I mean, I guess the reason why it brought me to tears is way back. The first album that I had heard by them was an album called We Like It Here. It has one of my favorite songs of all time on it called Shofukan. And that album, the jazz band from Texas got together, got like maybe like 50 people, sold tickets, like exclusive tickets to like 50 people to come in and like sit in the center of the band. And like they recorded the album, like the actual studio album with them there. And like the band was able to like use their energy, like fuel off of it. And it, like the energy of that recording of that album, it just feels unlike anything I had ever heard of before, especially at that point in my life. Since then, Snarky Puppy has won so many awards, gotten so much bigger, all sorts of shit. And now this new album, again, they're recording it in that same style as We Like It Here, where they introduce like 150 people or something to come in. Doesn't seem like much according to the music videos, but there's a decent amount of people in there. And damn, they re-locked in that energy that just gave me chills, and the reason why I fell in love with the band in the first place again. It is so awesome. And on top of that, because the band has come so far, a lot of these songs have these really cool different genre infusions in them. This album's like an hour and 40 minutes long with so many fucking tracks on it. Each track is like anywhere from like 8 minutes to like 15 minutes long because these guys are just going fucking nuts in like all sorts of fucking genres, dude. Like they know how to infuse jazz into fucking everything on planet Earth, and they nail it every time. I still stand by my statement that there are no skips on this album. But there are definitely a handful that really stick out to me. I will list them off quickly. I think RL's is a phenomenal track. It gives me very spooky vibes. Mean Green is very, very good. Free Fall is super good. Pineapple I fucking love. Trinity, the final track on the album, is so fucking good. Another one, single that came out this year that I fucking adored. And Clyroy, that was the other one I wanted to mention really hard because those ones in particular really, really gave me that energy that I love. But, God, just makes me happy to see that Snarky Puppy hasn't lost it. They can still write fucking phenomenal shit. I highly suggest if you want to try out new music going into the new year, check these guys out. They're super, super cool. It might not be exactly what you're used to if you're an avid follower of the show, but I think it's super fucking cool. If you like technical shit like Seder, this is going to be a fun time for you. A fun little jaunt. So my number 2, Empire Central, Snarky Puppy.
Nice. That's one I said this in the past because I know we've talked about this personally, but that's one that like I actively like need to go out of my way to listen to. I just keep forgetting because they're not a band that I follow, so I just kind of forget that they exist. That's but fair. From everything you've told me about it, and from what I've heard of Snarky Puppy in the past, like the few times you showed them to me, I will probably thoroughly enjoy that album just based on I can only imagine the sheer fucking craziness that happens in there. So I'm looking forward to checking that out on my own time. But
fuck yeah, super
awesome. Glad you had a good time with that. Brennan, we're on to you. What is your number 2 album of the year?
Well, I said this album would be a little higher up on my list, and that of course is Remember That You Will Die by Polyphia. I think now, once again, another massive disclaimer. And pretty much every album in my list has this problem somewhat. There are a couple songs that I think kind of suck. And that's just, like I said, seems to kind of be the trend with these albums. But literally everything else, in my opinion, is absolutely phenomenal. Like, I know you guys might not like the Chino Moreno song. I don't know what it is, but I fucking love it. Like, the fact that they did, like, you know, like, take a different path and, like, decided to make more of, like, a chuggy song with, like, an actual, like, chorus and, like, a vocal performance and shit, I thought was, like, revolutionary for Polyphia. And it actually, like, in my opinion, sounded good. you know, because they've done like vocal things in the past, even vocal things on this album that I think are like terrible. But everything else, like I think Chimera is like the rap feature done right. ABC fucking slaps. Like, you know, Sophie Black, or her name is, like, just fucking rips on it. Like literally every track except those two, in my opinion, is like top notch. Now, do I think it's better than New Levels, New Devils? Probably not, but like compared to like everything else on this in this year except one album, I can't put anything above it except for one album. But to me, this is like, if it wasn't for those two duds, this would be a masterpiece. But you know, it is what it is. So yeah, my number 2, Remember That You Will Die by Polyphia.
Fuck yeah, dude! I'm glad that made it onto all 3 of our lists. I would have been concerned if it hadn't.
Same.
Fucking great album. My number 2 album. This is one that, you know, I wasn't exactly sure where it was gonna place. It was definitely the front runner for a very long time until my number 1 came out. Till our number 1 came out. And I remember when this album came out, I was so fucking excited for it, and it surpassed my expectations. Really blew my socks off, but I thought, you know, there's so much good shit coming out this year. I doubt that it'll stay this high on my list, but through it all, through the entire year, this album I have been coming back to more so than any other album I've talked about. And that, of course, is Fear by Stan Atlantic. Good Lord. I fucking love this album. I mean, anybody who's watched our shit or listened to me talk ever knows that Stan Atlantic is my second favorite band of all time. I adore them. And I think that Fear is like their career peak so far. Like, I think it fucking smokes every album that they've ever put out. And I love every album that they've ever put out. And I've been a fan of them for a long time. And I really love the sound that they were able to capture for this album. Where, you know, on Pink Elephant, you know, they had some very, like, they ranged from, like, basic stuff to some more experimental stuff, and it was kind of all over the place. And I loved that album, and I love that album for that express reason. But Fear, they managed to just find this new sound where it's, like, punk mixed with, like, trap. It's just, like, the ultimate, like, fuck everybody energy. And, you know, that sound mixed with, like, the lyrics mixed with just, like, their stage presence, you know, if you've ever seen them live, which I have. That was the first concert I went to this year. I saw them again for, like, the 3rd time or whatever. And, you know, seeing them play, like, even, like, Molotov, a song that I don't even really like, seeing them play that shit live is fucking insane. It's so much fun, dude. Like, every song on this album, even some of the tracks that I don't come back to that often, they all just carry this energy that you don't really get even from, you know, some other bands in the pop punk genre. I think they really just, they found their sound, they honed in on it completely, and I really truly think it's their best work so far. I know that Kyle agrees with me, I know that Brendan doesn't, but that is where I stand. I love this album, and I'm going to continue jamming it until they give me something even better, I'm sure, because they've been on a constant fucking journey up. Every single time they release new shit, it's better than the last time. And it's one of the many reasons I love this band. It's the reason I love this album, and that's why it is my number 2 album of the year.
Fuck yeah. Retweet my guy, except for the last part about number 2. It's not obviously a thing for me, but I agree with you 100% everything else you said. Holy shit, man.
Hell yeah. Cool. Well, it's about time for our number 1, but we have a little bit of time left, so I am going to allow you guys to kind of talk about your some of your picks that did not quite make it, some honorable mentions, if you will. All of my honorable mentions are on your list, so I do not have anything else to say. In Stasis by Monuments was the only other one, and I briefly touched on that. Andy Cizik's best work, in my opinion. Go check that out if you haven't, but I am sick, and I need to go blow my nose very urgently. So I will let you guys begin discussing your honorable mentions while I go and just release copious amounts of liquid from my face, and I will return shortly.
Hell yeah.
Fair enough, yeah.
Well, I mean, continuing with our order, I guess I'll just throw mine out there. I'm really glad Tyler mentioned both Rain City Drive self-title and Fear by Stand Atlantic as his 2 and 3 because they were the ones that were constantly at all, literally ever since the last of the three came out with Totem by Seder. They were literally constantly revolving in as my number 5 all throughout the year. The only reason why Seder really knocked it out, in my opinion, is just because of like the technical prowess, much like you agreed with me, Brennan, is that it just was so fucking off the charts that I could not help myself from putting number 5. But Rain City Drive self-title and Stand Atlantic Fear they're phenomenal, and I'm so glad they made it on a list because I love those albums a lot. Outside of that, one that didn't make it on any of our lists, which I'm sad about, but you know it is what it is Goblin Hours by Bill Murray.
Yeah.
The album is super super fun. Speaking of my like theme of trying shit, that one yet again he tries all sorts of cool shit, nails it. Didn't quite make it into my list, but it is what it is. The two that I wanted to mention that I knew we weren't really going to talk about are Dodie's EP that came out this year. I know it's not an album, but this is where it would kind of land as far as classification. Her EP Hot Mess was fucking so good. I was not expecting, because I just like Dodie in general and every time she releases music. But this EP had like such a fucking energy to it and a fucking like story to tell that was so fucking cool. If you're looking for something short to listen to, like because you don't got much time, definitely check out Hot Mess by Dodie because that EP is killer. And then one that I have just been jamming all year that really doesn't fit in our genre either is Post Malone's 12 Karat Toothache. I fucking adore that album with all of my being. I didn't really think he's going to be able to get to the same levels as past albums, just because past albums have been so good. But this album has such emotion behind it, so much fucking passion packed into every second of that whole album that it came across my mind when thinking about albums to put on this list. So I want to give him a shout for it. So, but those are all my honorable mentions. Brennan,
Nice.
what you got? What almost made it?
Bill Murray almost made it. It was in pretty tight contention with my 5 spot. I don't know. I mean, it's a solid album. I have absolutely nothing bad to say about it. I think it's solid. I just thought everything else on this list was just a tad bit better.
Yeah.
Of course, a eulogy for those still here by Counterparts I thought was pretty lit. Colored Decay by The Devil Wears Prada was a good album. Kind of, bringing the old school and the new school of their sound, like kind of finally merging it for once. So that was pretty sick. Darko US, Oni from them was pretty lit. Couple other albums here and there. Like obviously like Rain City Drive came pretty close. Probably if I did a top 10, it'd be probably like 6 or 7. I think like that and Bill Murray would kind of be in a fight for those spots. Other than that, I think this year, I guess other honorable mentions, Jason Richardson coming out with 2 and Jared Dines coming out with The Gray. I think that'll probably round out my top 10. But this year, I feel like a lot of albums came out, like a lot of good albums, but very few like great ones. Like I don't even think, all of my top 5 I'd consider to be like great albums. But these are just the ones that just stood out a little bit more to me. But I don't know. It was a very, very good year for music. Not great, but very, very good for sure.
That's fair.
At least in my opinion. I could be wrong, but
that's fair. It is very rare that I would say it's very rare that like any album comes out that doesn't have like any stinkers on it. So from my perspective, I think that there were enough albums this year that I enjoyed the entirety of that it would be a great year for me personally. But I can understand why you do not see it that way. But good is still better than not good.
Oh.
Correct.
We've had some bad years.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we have.
Like not too long ago. So yeah.
But speaking of an album with no bad tracks on it, album with nothing but quality, album that has changed the face of music forever. I think we all have the same number one album, fellas. I'd be shocked if we don't.
What?
So
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, Slipknot.
let's discuss.
No,
Let's
You
discuss.
just ripped the shirt off at Slipknot.
The album was extremely mid. I think I'm good on that.
I'm shocked. Yeah. Obviously, all of our number one picks are Jackpot Juicer by Dance Gavin Dance. Holy fucking fuck. What a phenomenal record. Let's just take the next rest of this episode gushing about this album. Kyle, you're technically on to you, so I will let you start the train of compliments for this immaculate record.
I'll throw some shit in the pot and I'll pass it on. Yeah, I mean, this album, speaking of albums that had high expectations going in, this one met them and surpassed them, and I didn't even think that was fucking possible. Past EGD releases that we've covered, Afterburner, didn't have that same weight where like they kind of met it, but then it kind of fell off. You know, this one, it hit it and arguably continued to go higher on post-listen for me, or post-release rather. This album is just fucking wild. I remember seeing the length of it and going, it can't win everything. Like, it's just, there's too many songs. Right. There's no way that this album's gonna be able to just keep knocking it out of the park, but it did it. I fucking adore every single track. I think it's crazy that it's no skips, but it's no skips. I've just hit shuffle on this an absurd amount of times that my Apple Music replay informed me of. Just an absurd amount of times. As far for me, just standouts that they're out there. Swallowed by Eternity is one of my favorite songs by them of all time at this point. I fucking adore that track. It gives me goosebumps every time, and I've listened to it hundreds of times, and that's impressive. Other ones for me, I still hold Ember in really high regards. I think that objectively, it's probably like just a really phenomenally written track. For the Jeers, I come back to all the time. Synergy and Cream of the Crop. Die Another Day, I still adore. I know that was like kind of the theme of the episode, is I was really pushing for it the whole time. I love it. The ones though, like as far as like kind of like just kept pushing higher and higher though, I would give that award to Long Nights in Jail. That track is so groovy, so good, so tasty. I love it so much. But yeah, I'll pass it on to Brennan now. Brennan, what do you want to say great about that band that we all love?
So I don't think I love this record. All right. I don't think it's their best. However, I think it's I think it's easily top 3 for sure.
100%. There's no contesting
100%,
that.
For sure.
Contesting.
You know, I wouldn't say that like every single track is like spectacular, but I do respect every track. Like, you can tell that even on stuff I don't look well on like subjectively, you can still tell that they tried their absolute best to make sure that all 18 of these tracks, like, that they had like as little filler as possible. Like, each track seems really, really well thought out. Each track, you know, seems like they put a lot of time into this album as a whole. You know, some songs I think are like some of my favorites of all time from them. Some songs are really good. Some songs are just good, but I can't look at this album and point at anything and be like, this is bad. From top to bottom, this album is pretty spectacular. I do wish this is the same thing as Afterburner, that the last 2 songs were flipped.
100%.
But yeah, but I mean, to go from my kind of disappointment with Afterburner to, you know, a top 3 of their album at all time, I'd probably rank it like literally 2 or 3. To me, is just an absolutely spectacular turnaround, and I'm hoping that, you know, obviously the Tillian situation's some murky water, but I'm hoping that they continue this like newly found upward trajectory for me. So, because Jackpot Juicer, you know, I think hands down just the best album of this year. You know, I can't put anything above it.
Yeah. And for me personally, I'll go as far as to say Jackpot Juicer is my favorite album of all time, which was originally held by Instant Grat, but this album is so good that it beat down nostalgia, and that is a fucking difficult task to do in any situation for any single person.
Hell yeah.
If an album is good enough, if anything is good enough to overcome something that you hold dear with just like the vice grip of nostalgia, that is some fucking power. Like, that's some quality shit, and that is the case for me. It blows my fucking mind. Like Kyle said, this album is 18 songs long, and there's no skips. And I was like, there's got to be at least like 5 bad songs on this if it's 18 songs long. Like, there's got to be some filler. There's got to be some shit that just doesn't sound good. And it wasn't the case, and that still impresses me an insane amount to this very day. I will never be able to comprehend how this band, who already made a million incredible albums and a few okay albums, was able to craft something that topped everything they've ever done and was double the length of a normal album. Shit makes no sense. It should be statistically impossible. It has broken my brain and will forever, like, this is the new, like, the new bar has been set for, like, what a peak album can be. And, like, the bar is now at the top of, like, the highest point on Earth. It's, like, at the top of a fucking mountain or tall building. It's very high. And I think it's going to be very difficult for DGD or any other band to make an album that reaches that level. And I talked very highly about every album on my list and the albums on everyone else's list and all of those albums that didn't quite make it. But for me personally, the gap between every other album this year and this is like monstrous. Like, nothing came even remotely fucking close to how good Jackpot Juicer is. And it came out on my fucking birthday. What are the odds, right? That, like, my favorite album of all time from my favorite band ever would come out on my goddamn birthday. Sometimes I believe in magic. This is one of those times. It's too perfect of a scenario.
It really is. I still can't believe that. I remember whenever we first, like, heard the release date, and you were like, there's no fucking way. And I was like, wow. Well, I was really worried it was going to be a fucking stinker. And you were just going to be like, my birthday has been tarnished. And you were just going to like...
No.
But
best birthday I've had in years. And you know what I did on that day? I didn't see anybody. I didn't do anything. I just sat and listened to the album at work. And it was the best birthday I've had in years because the album was just that good.
Hell yeah, man.
That means my life is both very sad and that album is immaculate for that to be the case. Take your pick on which one that is. But yeah, Jackpot Juicer, man. Fucking spectacular album.
Hell yeah.
Perfect way to round out this year of top quality music. But yeah, we're done. I guess that's it. We've rounded up our top 5 albums of the year. Really glad I finally know what your lists are. I've been hotly anticipating this for quite some time, so I'm glad that we finally have that all out on the table.
Hell yeah. Surprisingly, Brennan and I's are like almost identical.
Yeah.
They're pretty close.
In a year in a podcast where people seem to like Brennan and I's like divergent views on things, our lists were almost identical outside of one band and one placement of a different band. That's actually kind of wild.
That is crazy that it was that close. God damn.
Oh, yeah.
I was expecting Brennan to just have like a bunch of like deathcore stuff that we like never touched on the channel, and I was just gonna be like, okay.
And I have the same issues with pop punk. I'm kind of surprised there weren't that many good like metalcore albums that came out, but that's a whole other topic. But you know, the thing with like deathcore and like pop punk and like genres that are so specific is like there's very little like originality in them. So, because I did think about like maybe mentioning like Lorna Shore, but like except for like breakdowns and like cool vocal parts, the album's kind of boring. and that's that's like, you know, the pinnacle of deathcore right now.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean,
Okay.
whatever.
Here's to next year, I guess, with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping a lot more like metalcore, like, you know, like maybe like Polaris or After the Burial or like Veil of Maya, like all those bands just started fucking flooding the market with albums. Like,
Can't wait for
Yeah.
the Veil Match album.
I
dude.
really hope Veil Maya puts out an album next year. I wanted that this year and it didn't happen, but
Same.
I'm kind of glad they didn't put it out this year because there was just so much that came out this year. Like,
yep.
I was ready. Like, there was a point where I was like, everyone needs to just fucking stop. Like, I can't make a list at this point with the sheer amount of things coming out that I enjoy. But I hope it comes out next year. And yeah, what a good fucking year, guys. What a great fucking year for music, for the channel, for
Absolutely.
our friendships. It's just quality year, quality time. Guys, if you like this video, please do us a favor and go ahead and like it, because that really does help out just an absolute ton. And please subscribe to the Talks a Lot Boys if you haven't already. And if you have, thank you so much, because that means a whole stinking lot to us. We got way more subscribers this year than we thought we were going to. Our stretch goal was 300 subs. We passed that by we started the year with 150. We ended up going 150 over our sub goal. So we got double the amount that we wanted to this year, which is stupid, crazy, ridiculous. So thank you so much to everybody who has been supporting us this year. Really fucking awesome and makes me very happy. If you feel like it, go ahead, comment below what your top 5 albums of the year were. We would love to hear it. Hopefully you got some good stuff in there that maybe we didn't include or haven't heard of that we can go check out. It'd be really fucking awesome. Excited to hear all of your opinions and thoughts. But yeah, that's gonna do it for us for this year. So we have been the Talk Slot Boys, and we will talk a whole lot more next time. See you later.